Well, that didn't turn out how we expected. Let's go back to the beginning.
You're about to get school. All right, a lot of people have been asking me what my daily driver is. Whoops. It's actually this little hunk of junk right here. This is a 2001 Honda Civic sedan. It actually has 2005 bodywork on it. This car is a bit of a junker. I'm not really known for driving really nice cars other than the Type R when I had it for a while. I'm more known for driving cars that are fast and engine swapped. This car used to be both. This car at one time, it was a turbo K20, super fast. It's been in quite a few magazines. It originally was way back in early 2000s on the cover of Honda Tuning for the first K-swapped ES2. Then later on, it was on the cover of Car and Driver magazine, part of the Super 4 Challenge. It actually finished third of all the four-cylinder cars, front-wheel drive cars. It did rather well. That was, again, turbocharged. I've had a number of engines in here. Initially, we had the K20. After that, we had a turbocharged K20. Then, after that, we had a K24 TSX motor. Drove that for quite some time. Oh, and for a while, we even had a K24 CRV motor with a Jackson Racing supercharger. Anyway, the car has been kind of ignored. I've been using it just basically to get back and forth to work. I need to get it emissioned, and there are a lot of problems. We had a check engine light for the vapor recovery system. Also had a problem with the NOx sensor, and I had swapped a TSX engine and transmission in here, and I was having difficulty with the transmission. Somehow that transmission, and when I purchased it, had a ground up sixth gear synchro. I'm pretty certain that was actually due to somebody running it low on oil for quite some time. But I took that engine and transmission out. I'm going to put another one in, another TSX engine and transmission in. And I thought this would be a perfect time to show you how to K-swap the EM2 ES2 body. This is the 2001-2005 Civic. This car was originally an automatic. So I'm going to show you everything you need to do in order to swap a K in. Okay, here's our engine. It's just a standard TSX motor. This is actually, I believe, was a 2003 TSX engine, so it's the early style one. It has 200 horsepower, but it came drive-by-wire, so that's not really going to be compatible with what we're doing. So one of the first things we're going to have to change is the throttle body. The way the engine came was like this. It didn't have a power steering pump, didn't have an alternator. And I believe it was because when I purchased this at the salvage yard, there was they were charging extra for the other parts. Depending on what salvage yard you're at, sometimes they have like an engine assembly, and you can get the AC pump and the alternator and the power steering pump all included on the engine, and makes it a little bit cheaper that way. But this particular place was, the engine was reasonable. I think it was about $250, $275. But they didn't want me to have any of the accessories on it, so had to take those off. A couple things we're going to do to this motor. We're going to start off, we're going to change the thermostat housing. If you notice, this one kind of angles upward. We need one that angles downward. We're going to be using an EP3 radiator in the car, so we need to change that out. The alternator, I'm going to go ahead and try a few things out with the alternator. It's interesting. These housings are different depending on the car, and the height of these 3 bolt holes where the alternator attached is different. I have an RSX alternator because on the old engine I put an RSX pump on it. Did I? No, CRV pump on it. We're going to see if it has the same offset. If not, we'll switch over to an Accord or TSX alternator, which should fit this housing no problem. Also, we're not going to run power steering in this car. Some time ago, I converted this car over to electronic power steering. I'll show you more on that as we go along. We're obviously going to have to change the block bracket out. That's a little bit different. We're going to have to do some wiring changes because this particular transmission uses a countershaft speed sensor rather than a vehicle speed sensor. You've probably heard me talk about that in other videos. We'll get into the wiring probably actually after the engine is installed. On this particular swap, when I originally built it, I actually used an Element engine harness and converted it over for use with this particular engine. And I did that because I liked where all the wiring came out. It's identical to the Accord, so it had a lot of, the lengths and stuff were all, equal to what you would find with the, the Accord harness. You could have also used an Accord harness, but either way, both of those, because I was running a Honda, needed to be converted over for use of the Honda, so I'll go over that as well. But that'll be in a later video. Anyway, we will start swapping parts. Something interesting about this manifold, I don't know if you can see right here, there's actually a cutout here for the idler control valve. Now, the drive-by-wire throttle body does not have an idler control valve. It looks like this. You'll notice here the gasket is actually designed to fit with this. I believe this manifold actually came on this particular engine with a drive-by cable. It's probably like an Accord Euro in Japan, so that's why it does that. But after 2006, this cutout's no longer there. So if you were using that later model TSX engine, you're going to have to try and find one of the earlier model throttle bodies, earlier manifolds, in order to actually be able to use it with a drive-by cable throttle body, or have some sort of adapter plate. The tubing is already disconnected, so it looks like I probably had this off once before. This motor's been sitting around the shop for years, so that's probably why. This looks pretty grimy in here. Yeah, I think I'll clean it. Okay, after about 10 minutes of cleaning the engine and another 15 minutes cleaning me, let's get back to it. This is the thermostat housing that's coming off it. You notice this outlet, or actually it's an outlet. You can notice it kind of pokes up a little bit. The one we're replacing it with is this one right here. This comes on the RSX, comes on the EP3, and comes on the CRV. So you can find it on actually quite a few cars. Notice how it's angled downward. Something else that's kind of different about it, if you line up these two back sides here, you'll notice that this outlet up here comes out at a slightly different angle. Okay, so when you're installing it, you actually need to change the angle of this tube a little bit in order to match that of the thermostat housing. By the way, don't drop in the brittle. We need to have, as you can see here, it needs to angle outward a little bit more in order to have the proper entrance angle and for this rubber O-ring to seal properly. I've seen them done without putting the bend in them, and sometimes they leak, sometimes they don't. We'll go ahead and put the bend in ours just so to make sure that it works. By the way, the CRV tube doesn't really work on this engine. This manifold over here is absent on the CRV. The CRV doesn't have this. It doesn't have an EGR. This head came equipped with EGR, so it has the inlet for the radiator on the side of the head instead of the front of the head. So this tube is kind of unique. It comes on the Accord, comes on the TSX, but it is designed specifically for clearing this part over here on the side. All right, so like I said, if we were to simply just install this the way it is, you'll notice how it angles backwards, so we need to kind of kick it outward in order to get it to seal properly. I've got it bolted down here, and I'm gonna put something in there so I can tweak it. An 11mm socket fits in there nicely. From here I can kind of twist it out a little bit. The extension gives me a little bit of leverage. Now I can install it. I want to lubricate it. There we go. That's going to line up nicely. Don't forget to put the rubber O-ring in here, like I just did. Oh! By the way, the reason you can't just change this outer piece for the CRV one is it's slightly clocked differently. So what winds up happening is it won't screw on. But there is another choice. The RDX happens to have an outlet that points in the same direction as this, but it fits the Accord and TSX thermostat housing. So if you want to, you can purchase one of those from Acura. I think they're about 45 bucks, 50 bucks, probably about 50 bucks. So you can buy that from Acura and have just the thermostat go on. Not a bad idea because you get a brand new thermostat that way. You can also find them on Amazon for, I think, about $35. Whoops. While I have the manifold off, I'm going to go ahead and try my alternator on. The alternator I had in the car was, I believe, from a CRV. So let's see if it goes on to this TSX housing. I have a suspicion it won't. Yeah, I was afraid of that. So let me show you what's going on here. As I put the alternator on, and I bring the bottom two mounting tabs flat, you'll notice there's a gap right here. It's like this on the 06 Civic SI water pump, I believe. It's like this on the TSX water pump, and like this on the, actually it may not be like that on the 06 Civic SI. I guess I'll have to check that out. But for sure it's like this on the Accord and TSX water pump. So I'm going to need a different alternator, either that or make a spacer to take up this gap. Otherwise, if you cranked it down, which I've seen people do, it usually results in breaking a couple alternator bolts. It's important that these things be flush and not put the bolt under stress, because it's going to tweak the bolt right where the threads are, and that's its weakest point. Okay, this is an Accord alternator. Yeah, all three are flush now. The only thing I'm worried about is this plug right here, whether or not it's going to be too close to our radiator or fan, or one of our fans. But you know, if it turns out to be a problem, we'll figure something else out. You may wonder why I'm not more exact about some of these parts, but I'll have to be honest with you. The original time I did this swap was probably 2004. And you'll see it's not, I know a lot more about what's going on now than I did back then, but and you'll be able to see by the wiring. The wiring in this car is atrocious. So that's one of the things I'm going to do is clean up the wiring. Now, while I have everything off, I'm going to go ahead and add in the charge harness. Normally on an RSX, what winds up happening is the charge harness not only has the knock sensor and the wiring for the alternator, it also has the wiring for the starter, and it has wiring for the starter power and the alternator power. So they're all three typically contained in the harness. Now, when I did this particular swap, the battery's not up front, it's in the back. If you do a swap on an EG, EK, usually the battery stays up front, so you make a harness that still has that battery cable and the charge cable in it, and that works pretty good. But since this car actually has the battery in the back, I went ahead and separated out the alternator harness and the starter harness, the starter plug from that. So I just basically used a small section of sub harness in order to put this in. Oh, and the other wire that's contained in there is also the AC. So knock sensor, AC, and the 4 wires for the alternator. So here's the starter wire and the alternator charge wire. These are usually combined with this particular part of the harness. I went ahead and separated it out. I don't see an AC plug, so obviously it's not on this particular harness. So I'm confusing with the 2006 Civic Si. Yeah, that one has it on that harness. Well, on this particular one, the AC plug is actually on the front of the car. So it's not in this particular part of the sub harness. But this sub harness usually plugs in right here to the rest of the engine harness. Then the small single pin plug plugs onto your knock sensor. This particular sub harness is off of an Accord, and I just changed this plug to match up with the RSX. It had the correct plugs on each end. So now that's connected, and this will connect right there. And next, what I need to do is put on these. This is for the alternator and for the starter. So let's see here. They go like so, just like this. All right, I need to put the starter on next, but before I do that, I actually need to take the transmission off. This engine originally was out of an automatic transmission car, so I need to put the clutch flywheel on that as well. All K-Series flywheel bolts are the same. They're marked by F12. They look very similar to the ones that come in a B-Series engine, but the B-Series ones are slightly longer. So if you take B-Series flywheel bolts, put them on your K, you're going to feel like they're working, but they're actually going to bottom out. That could even mushroom out the head and actually ruin the crankshaft. So make sure you get the right clutch bolts. The flywheel can be off any K-Series, but the clutch and pressure plate need to match the flywheel, because basically there are a couple of different flywheels. They have different bolt patterns on the outside, so you need to make sure you get the correct clutch and pressure plate to go with your flywheel. And actually, I shouldn't say the clutch disc. You could probably use any of those. I think they all switch around. It seems to me that I've been just kind of throwing them all in a pile. Quite often my cars never run more than 10,000, 5,000 miles before I wind up taking them all apart again. So quite often I have used clutches that I use, like this one in particular. It's probably got, I don't know, probably about 20,000 miles on it. It's probably going to be fine for what we're doing here. I don't expect this engine to be in here very long. As a matter of fact, I bought a new daily driver. I'm just getting this one up and running so I can show you guys how to do the swap. Once I get my new daily driver running, I'm going to go ahead and put a J Series engine in this black and blue car, which I think is going to be a lot of fun. So I don't expect to get more than about 5,000, 6,000 miles on this particular flywheel and clutch before it comes back out again. You ever had the engine want to turn over when you're trying to torque down the clutch properly? By the way, the clutch bolts on the Accord and the TSX and the 5-speeds are about 76 foot-pounds, and I think 92 foot-pounds for the Type S, which probably also is for the 06 Civic Si. Not really sure why there's a difference in those. Possibly it could be the crankshaft, I don't know. I'm sure somebody could tell me why, but kind of escapes me. Anyway, this tool, Honda actually recommends it. They have a part number for it in their manual. This bolts on and actually holds down the clutch so it can't rotate, or the flywheel, I mean. So tighten it down. And now our flywheel is locked down, basically against itself, and we should be able to torque it without any difficulty. So 76 foot-pounds. Next, I need a centering tool for the flywheel. I don't think I brought one home. Let me check out my stuff. Well, it appears I forgot to bring a clutch alignment tool home, so I think I'm going to have to do this the old-fashioned way. All right. See how this works first. Wow, lined up first time. I don't think it's ever happened to me before. Torque rating on a this particular part is 19 foot-pounds. I think it's the same 6-speed, 5-speed, doesn't matter. 19 foot-pounds. Okay, the moment of truth. Did I line it up accurately? We'll see. Why, yes, I did. The starters come in a bunch of different styles, but they're all interchangeable, even though they're different part numbers. The one that comes on the RSX Type S is like a gear reduction style. It's possible that this might interfere with the intake manifold, but again, we're using the Accord ones, so the Accord ones work. Automatic, manual, doesn't matter. One of the big differences of all of them is how the starter wire connects. Okay, some of them have just the same spade with rubber sleeve that's been coming on Hondas forever, and other ones are a little bit more proprietary. I think starting in '06, the Civic had like a clip, a connector that went on there, and then probably later model stuff as well. But again, you can use those starters, you just got to change the connector. I'll need to torque all these bolts down, but basically I've now got the starter in place, so I can go ahead and connect this. Okay, so my charge harness and my alternator wire and starter wire are now in place. Okay, now we can put our manifold back on. Like I got barnacles going in here. Huh. Wonder what those are. This bracket right here that's holding the brake booster hose is going to come off actually. One of the things we need to put on this is the throttle cable bracket, and it happens to bolt to these two bolt holes right here. Here is my Accord throttle body. That's for the idle air control valve. It has, of course, the same bolt pattern as the drive-by-wire throttle bodies do. But one thing is a little bit different. See these studs right here? They're kind of long. You can see we've got a little bit of the solid part of the stud sticking out. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and find some shorter studs and replace those. You could also just put a stack of washers underneath the nut, but that just seems ridiculously long, so I'm going to go ahead and change the stud out. Once again, cool tool time. I actually have some snap-on stud removers at work. They're kind of interesting. They have kind of like a cam lock that locks the tool onto the stud. It'll actually, depending on how tight the stud is in there, it'll actually damage the stud sometimes, unless you can get it down onto the shoulder. Then it's pretty safe on studs. But nothing you can't clean up with a die or with a thread cleaner. But this one is Aries. I got it on Amazon. I'll put a link in the show notes. It's more like a drill chuck. So let's see here. As you're unscrewing it, you can see the jaws kind of protruding out. And eventually it grabs it. It's got a place for a large crescent wrench if you need to tighten it more than I just tightened it right there. But it latches onto that thing, and here we go. I'd imagine sometimes you might need a tool to loosen it. You can see a difference in the stud lengths there. I actually harvested these out of probably an Accord manifold that I threw away. I tend to put the RBC manifolds or the TSX manifolds on the Accord motors just because bigger plenum on this, and depending on what we're trying to do. Another cool tool. Better than AN line tools. I mean, obviously AN lines AN wrenches are nice. They're aluminum, non-marring. This is actually smooth jawed. They're like channel locks. They're made by Nipex. They're expensive, 50 bucks, but man, they are great for grabbing hold of things and not damaging them. Make sure you take care of them though, and don't let people use them for stuff they shouldn't, but they work awesome on AN lines. I'm just going to tighten it down like going in reverse, because I think what will happen is as soon as it bottoms out, it'll loosen up. There we go. Cool tool, Aries stud remover. Thankfully, I was able to use the stock hoses, just flip the bottom one around. Probably when I grabbed the throttle body off a car off the salvage yard. Probably should have grabbed the hoses too. Anyway, it worked. Next is the throttle cable bracket. This particular throttle cable bracket came off of an Element. Element harnesses, I haven't tried yet on this car, but I have a suspicion it's going to bolt right on and work just fine. You'll notice there's actually two positions for throttle cables. One of them actually is for the cruise control. At some point you may put cruise control back on this car. But probably, yeah, maybe. We'll have to see. I believe there's actually a second little bracket that goes right here normally that holds this hose. Looks like I don't have it though. Throttle cable bracket on. I'm going to take a little break. Looks like my wife's back from the grocery store. I'm going to help her with some groceries. I'm back with a Red Bull. This is the block bracket. The block bracket is not going to work with our swap. The mounts were designed to be used with the K20 style block bracket, which has two holes up the top. So you have a couple choices of what you can do. You can use a CRV block bracket or an Element block bracket or any of the block brackets that imitate those. So basically they have, what happens is these two upper holes are spaced about 3/4 of an inch higher, actually like 19 millimeters taller. So because of that, the K20 block bracket won't work. This hole is in the same location, whether it's a K20 or K24, but these two holes change because the block is taller, which moves the head up, which moves these two bolt holes up, which are in the head. Anyway, let's take this one off. By the way, if you're in a salvage yard and you're taking block brackets, make sure you get at least one of the bolts. These two bottom bolts are the same length as a bolt you'd find on the CRV block bracket, but this one's quite a bit longer. If you can compare it to the others, it's a lot thicker up top here. On the CRV block bracket, all three bolt holes are through a piece of metal about that thick right there. We're not going to be using a CRV block bracket. We're going to be using the Hasport block bracket. It's a little bit different. It's actually manufactured to be universal. It has dual sets of holes, and then it also has a slotted hole down here for the K24Z transmission, or Z motor, K24Z. That block is different. By the way, I don't necessarily recommend using that one because it requires a bunch of extra parts in order to get it to work right. The crank angle sensor is totally different. Our crank angle sensor is underneath here. It's got, I don't know, maybe 12, 16 pulses or teeth on it. What winds up happening is the one that's on the K24Z is actually on the crankshaft itself, and it has 61 teeth on it. So it's just completely different. This bracket's kind of uniquely made. On the back side here, one of the reasons nobody's ever done something like this before is because when you make the dual bolt pattern on the back side of it, the second bolt, when you're using a K20, actually goes over top of the VTC. What we decided to do, and I thought it was kind of, well, it was my idea, so I thought it was good. I made a spacer that goes back here that can be transferred between the two holes, and that allows us to clear the VTC with the bracket, so I like it. One more thing, and that is the idler pulley. Like I said, I didn't do the hydraulic power steering on this car. I actually swapped it out. By the way, if you decide you want to do hydraulic power steering, first off, I suggest you use the RSX power steering pump. It's slightly more compact. But what you're going to find is that the pulley is going to hit the hood. Now, it's going to hit the substructure of the hood, so you're going to have to make a hole basically in the substructure in order to get it to work. But you can run it. What I opted to do is run electronic power steering, which is available in the hybrid model and also in the EP3. The EP3, much like the ES2 and EM2, has a very kind of short nose. So what they did was put electronic power steering in it. Like they did with this car, this sedan actually came in Southeast Asia, I think Malaysia, with a K20 in it. So in that particular vehicle, it also came with electronic power steering. So, and it was actually really easy to do. So as part of this process, I'll show you how I put electronic power steering into my EM2. So if that's something you want to do, you can do that. And by the way, this is kind of funny. When I go back to the J series engine, I'm actually going to ditch the electronic power steering and go back to the hydraulic power steering. That way I can use the RSX rack, which I think is a little bit sportier. I think that'll be kind of cool. Okay, these things come on EP3s. That's where you get them. You can also get them in the 06 Civic. I believe it's the same. I'm pretty sure it's identical. If not the same part number, it's still, you know, totally interchangeable and works exactly the same. Clearly, that's going to change the belt you're using. This pulley is much smaller than the power steering pulley. Which brings us to the belt. This is my daily driver. I wanted AC in it, so I was able to find a RSX Type S AC pump. And then for the hoses, I wound up using a combination of parts. I'll have to get the part numbers for you, but basically it's like EP3 upper radiator hose, and I think for the condenser I might have used one from the hybrid, because the hybrid actually has the engine on the right side of the car, just like the RSX is. So I think I used that particular condenser. In fact, I wound up having to change the mounts down below on the Core Sport in order to use that. I think that's what I did. Anyway, I'll have to look up the part numbers, and that'll be part of a later edition as we talk about what I did in order to get the power steering, or I'm sorry, air conditioning in the car. But it can be done with factory parts. There was just a little bit of modification I had to do to the chassis itself in order to mount the condenser and I wanted to use. And this is the AC compressor mounted. Now there are a couple different pulleys, like 4 or 5 different size pulleys, crank pulleys. I'm not really sure which size I had on the other car, so I may have had a K20 style one on because it probably helps with a little bit of horsepower. But let's see if this thing even comes close to fitting. Looks like like I had a K24 belt on it. It's on. Not exactly sure what size belt this is. I'll have to look, see if I have notes on it. But RSX Type S, K24, Accord, EP3. Let's look at the back side of the motor here. All right, intermediate shafts. There are 2 different length intermediate shafts. There's 4 different intermediate shafts, 2 different lengths. There are the Civic style, I like to call, which comes on the EP3, comes on the 06 to 11 Civic, and comes on the RSX. That particular one is short, about that long. Then there's the one that comes on the Accord, the TSX, the 2012 Civic Si, that's 2.5 inches longer. For our axles, we're going to be using RSX Type S axles because I have an RSX Type S suspension on this car. So I'm going to go ahead and use the Civic style or the RSX style intermediate shaft. It uses this bolt hole, this bolt hole, and this bolt hole. If you use the Accord style one, it uses these same 2 plus this one up here. No longer uses that one back there. By the way, once you go to the K24Z, what winds up happening is this bolt hole is no longer there. There's actually an oil filter there. So people who have used the shorter RSX intermediate shaft usually wind up cutting off that one leg that comes back here to this bolt hole. I know people that have raced on it, so obviously it's okay. You know, I don't, they're road racing, not drag racing. I'm not sure what would happen if you were drag racing on such a thing. That may be a little bit too much torque for just 2 bolt holes. The intermediate shaft you use is going to dramatically affect the axle. If you're running an axle that's 2.5 inches shorter, that's an axle that, if you've got a lot of suspension travel, is going to go through quite a bit of change. If it's on a drag car, it doesn't have a lot of suspension travel, so it may not make that much difference on a car like that. But for like a street car, a car that's severely lowered, or some other road racing car, it might make it a big difference. All right, let's find the intermediate shaft. Okay, intermediate shaft bolts have this big shoulder on them. They're actually made to help locate the intermediate shaft and keep it from moving around. So these 2 bolt holes right here are going to use the shoulder bolts. This one back here is going to use just a normal bolt. By the way, if you have an automatic intermediate shaft, the reason you'll be able to tell is you won't be able to put it in. The intermediate shaft on the automatics is this brace is taller because the transmission is larger, the diff is further backwards. Okay, so automatics don't work. When you try to put them in, the bracket will interfere and prevent you from sliding the intermediate shaft in the transmission. So kind of beware if you're buying something that you're not getting an automatic one accidentally, which is going to be basically useless. All the manual ones are the same, including the one for the all-wheel drive transmission. There are some differences in the intermediate shafts, how big this bearing carrier is, how there's like a heat shield that goes on here, but basically 2 types, the shorter one and the longer one, and then of course automatic and manual. So here's our wiring harness. I may have lied. I said that I built this out of a element harness, but I don't recall element harnesses having this style of connector on them. So this may have originally been an RSX harness that I just put the other style of plastics on. Well, doesn't matter. We'll go ahead and put this harness on and get it ready. I think even though this may have originally been an RSX harness, I think I will still go over how to take an element harness and convert it over to use with this particular engine, because you can actually find those in the salvage yard still. So there's actually a pretty good reason why people should understand, you know, what it takes in order to get these things to work. Again, a lot of the dimensions are the same basically for the for using it with a TSX engine if you have drive-by throttle cable, or using the Accord engine. And the Accord engines are a really cheap alternative to the RSX engine. At 160 horsepower, the 01 Civic actually moves really nicely with that engine in it. Now, we're coming to the crank angle sensor. Yeah, I think this was a RSX harness. The way it's keyed is, if you look here closely at this connector, you can see that the keys on either side are right in the middle. On the crank angle sensor that comes on the RSX, the EP3, and the CRV, that's how that works. So this particular connector is actually keyed for a CRV or a RSX EP3 or EP3 crank angle sensor. I don't believe I have one for this one, so we're going to need to change this plug, and we're going to need to repin it. Now there's actually a video on how to do that, but since I got you here, we'll go ahead and do that for you right now. I actually had an Accord harness I was converting over for use with an earlier style engine for our Project Prelude, so I was able to pull the connector off of that so we can change it out. So basically there's three wires here. There's a power wire, a ground wire, and a signal wire. And to get to them, we need to lift this lock out. And then there are little plastic tabs that are holding each one of these in. So we're going to lift those one by one. And pull our wires out. This harness is baked. Very old. The wires are stiff.
That's what she said.
This is pinned slightly differently, so we're going to go ahead and pin it out correctly for this. So when numbering and looking at stuff, this is a female pin, so it's going to have female terminals. So the way we look at it to know how it's numbered is we look at the back side. That's 1, that's 2, and that's 3. Number 1 is going to be our power. Number 3 is going to be our ground wire. And the center one is going to be our signal wire. So we're going to reinstall those just like that. So yellow black is our power wire. Click it into place. This brown yellow is our ground. That goes in the other end. And then the center one, the wire that's left over, is our signal back to the ECU. And it's going to go into the center position. You can hear them all click when they go home. And now we need to put our lock in. It's locked in and it can be plugged in. Except it looks like I need to install a sensor. Here it is. Yeah, you can see this, how this Accord / TSX sensor has the keys slightly down below center, and if you look at our old connector, they were in the center, so there's no way this one would have went on. It just wouldn't have gone on, which is fine because it wasn't pinned correctly to work anyway. That's in, and that is connected. For our transmission. Start off with our reverse lockout, since this is a 6-speed transmission. It should click home at some point. There it goes. This is our countershaft speed sensor. Normally, on an RSX harness, it would have came to right here and would have been for our vehicle speed sensor. And that's how it does. But we had to modify this one for use as a countershaft speed sensor. So that's going to go around here to the front of the transmission. That's just right down here on the front. That's our countershaft speed sensor. So this is going to route. We'll go ahead and bring it forward in front, keep it out of the shifter cables, and plug it in down here. Now, this particular sensor we had to add, and it is different than the vehicle speed sensor. The vehicle speed sensor has a power, a ground, and a signal. They go back to A18 on the ECU plug. Now, there's actually a video on how to do this, but let me just go over it real quickly. Basically, we use the same signal back to the ECU at A18, but we had to change the other 2 wires because normally it uses 12 volts power and just normal ground through the harness ground. That is too much voltage for the sensor. It'll burn it out. So what you do is you extend the signal wire over, bring it in, and then the other one, and then the other 2 wires you add actually share the TPS's power and ground. The TPS uses a 5-volt signal and a signal ground that goes back to the ECU. So you basically are going to tap into those. So what we have is we have a yellow-blue wire on one side, a black-blue wire in the middle. That's the signal that goes back to the to A18. The yellow-blue being the power, the signal power, and then the signal ground is a green-yellow wire. So looking at the back side, it's power at number 1, signal in the center, and ground at the other side. And basically, you're just going to match up this yellow-blue wire to the yellow-blue wire on the TPS. Just find it where it's in the harness and hook up to it. And then the green-yellow wire as well, just find it in the harness, hook up to it as well. And that gives you everything you need for the yeah, I think I'm going to reroute over here. But it gives you everything you need for the countershaft speed sensor. Yeah. In front. All right. Now, last to hook up on the transmission is our reverse. All right. Now this large green plug right here, actually I did a pretty good job of putting all the Accord plastics on this harness. All right, this plug down here winds up going to our sub harness. Oh no, yep, there we go. This right here is our TPS. Our map sensor. This is the temp air sensor, and this is our starter wire. I'm going to peel the rubber back. It's a little bit easier to see what I'm doing. go. This needs to go up underneath this hose. This large light green colored plug is for the electronic air control valve. And now we have left are the injector plugs. Do not forget to hook up your ground. The car will not run without. And usually what winds up happening is it grounds intermittently, so it really drives you nuts. The last thing we had was a repair. When I was pulling this out of the car earlier, the other engine, I actually damaged the plug for the AC compressor. So I need to crimp a new end on that. So let's take a quick look, see what it looks like. Like the old VTEC plugs. Push the old connector out. That terminal came off. Need to put a new one on. Looks like my insulator's damaged, so we'll replace that too. We're ready to drop this motor in the car. Okay, today we're working again on Project Black and Blue, my 02 Civic that actually has 0405 bodywork. That's my daily driver. We're going to be doing an engine install. And not only am I going to be installing the engine that's going in the car, but I want to talk about the other choices as well. Typically, what most people do when they do an engine swap on the ES2 or EM2, they like to use the RSX Type S motor. This engine right here is actually an 05 Civic Si motor. It would work the same way as an RSX motor. So I've got it here just to kind of demonstrate how it goes in. Let me start off by showing you the mounts. Now, as you know, the D17 that comes in that car, the engine's on this side, transmission's on this side, so we wind up having to swap things around a little bit. For the transmission side, this bracket bolts on the frame rail, and then you have this mount which bolts on top of the transmission, interfaces with the bracket. On the passenger side, we've got a bracket that bolts on the frame rail where the motor mount used to bolt. The motor mount used to use these two holes plus a third one downhill, but this sits up on top of the frame rail on the passenger side. And then we use a mount we've been using with Hasport kits, the EKK1 kit, 2 kit, EGK kit. This is our engine mount that goes on that side. For the rear, we have to use the RSX subframe. So the rear winds up being what looks like a normal rear mount for a DC5, and we use the stock DC5 rear bracket. Now, something interesting about this motor that you may not realize, this motor is actually the motor that comes in the EM2 in certain markets in Southeast Asia. It comes with 160 horsepower K20, and it has this intake manifold on it. And the reason it has this intake manifold, not the one you see in the base RSX, is because it's much shorter. And the nose on the Civic is actually really short. It's actually shorter than the EP3's nose. By the way, if you ever decide you want to do a supercharger on your EM2, the one you want to use is the one that's built for the 02 to 05 Civic Si. That one fits really nice, does a really good job. Now this is the motor we're actually stuffing in the car. This is a K24A2, this is a TSX motor. This requires slightly different mounts. To start with, there's a block bracket on this side that is basically like the CRV block bracket. It has the two top mounts on, the two holes on top for the mount to run. This particular version, which is the Hasport Universal K-Series block bracket, actually will fit a whole bunch of different K-Series engines. Now, on that side, we have this normal mount, bolts on top, and then of course the same frame rail bracket bolts on the side. On the passenger side, again, we have this bracket that bolts on the frame rail on the passenger side, but we have a slightly different mount. It's this mount right here. This is the mount that interfaces with the K24 transmission that comes in the first gen TSX and also comes in the 03 to 07 Accord. For the rear, once again, RSX subframe, so we're going to use an RSX type rear mount, but we have a special bracket that bolts to the back of the engine and transmission and interfaces with that mount. One more thing, if you decide you want to use the 2012 Civic SI transmission, the 08 to 14 Accord, the 13 Accord, the 09 to 14 TSX, that transmission has even a different setup. You would use this rear bracket, but you'd go back and use this style transmission mount. And for those of you who might be really adventurous, there's actually an all-wheel drive system as well. Now that doesn't use the RSX subframe, that uses a CRV, an Element subframe. You would use the mount that we make for the Element CRV, and that would bolt right up using the same two side mounts you would find for the RSX Type S. If you look at the subframe, the big difference between these two is this rear bar. The rear bar is flat on the RSX and it humps up on the regular engine. Now the regular engine, because it has a D17, the header comes out the front, goes underneath the engine, and goes under the subframe. That's why it's like that. Unfortunately, the subframe is not placed in a position that makes it easy to do a swap header. If somebody made a swap header that was specific to the EM2 and ES2, you would actually be able to use a stock subframe. Hasport would just make a new rear bracket that came off that rear mount in order to use the stock subframe. But as of right now, nobody's making a custom header, and it would probably wind up being kind of a one-off thing and rather expensive. Not $250 like a lot of the headers that are available for K-Swap are. All right, let's get this motor in the car. One of the things I did was I shortened this bracket right here. This is the KBS bracket. Once I did that, I drilled a new hole all the way through, and then I tapped the hole that was underneath in order to make it so that I could bolt it down. We thought about adding a tapped hole there right now, but thought it was going to be pretty much impossible for people to cut this off and get that all lined up properly with kind of just doing it blind. So we thought it better that people drill and tap that hole themselves. You could actually probably leave it loose. Even without that bolt, it's pretty tight. I just think over years it might actually eventually stress fracture. This front bolt is used for a ground because it goes all the way through the bracket into the body itself. That will keep the powder coat on the bracket from insulating the ground. There was a group of ground wires that initially attached in a slightly different place. We had to move those to this lower area on the frame in order for them to still be effective. The passenger side bracket sits on the frame rail right here. Using two of the three old mount bolt holes. There's a third one, I'm not going to use that one. There's also a bolt right in here through the top. Probably unnecessary, but what the heck, added security. you can see, the K20A3 looks right at home in this engine bay. The manifold comes right up to the core support, just barely enough room actually. And this is actually a very easy swap, this and the RSX Type S. You're going to use the EP3's throttle cable. You can use most of the parts off the EP3 for air conditioning. You're going to use the shifter from the RSX. It bolts right into the stock location on this, and the rubber grommet fits right in the stock location as well. The RSX harness goes right in. The wiring is not terribly difficult if you've got an LX or a DX, and plenty of people make adapter harnesses for that. Because it's actually the air-fuel ratio sensor is the only real difference. On some models of EX, they actually have an air-fuel ratio sensor on those as well, but you need to do some changes to the wiring. Anyway, it works really well in this car. The one thing is, these cars come with hydraulic power steering. So if you're going to be using hydraulic power steering, you want to get the RSX power steering pump. You want to use the RSX hose, the reservoir, and then you're going to have to make a little bit of a clearance cut in the hood in order to clear the pulley, because it's going to stick up a little bit high, and it's actually going to interfere with the skeleton of the hood. So you're going to have to make a cut there. But otherwise, this engine fits super nice in this car. But this isn't the engine I want. I want the K24A2. So we're going to put that one in. Okay, this is the engine I decided to go with. This is a complete TSX, 200 horsepower, actually more like 198 or something, or 97. 200 horsepower K24A2 with the TSX 6-speed manual transmission. I had to make a few modifications to it in order to get it to work. First of all, I had to make a harness for it. The harnesses that come on the RSX, which is the one that's most compatible with the electronics of this particular car, it doesn't have quite all the parts in the right place, so I actually took a element harness and modified it. So it's had quite a few little modifications, but I liked using that because it already came with the countershaft speed sensor down here, and it had plastics on it that aligned well with what's going on. One of the other changes I had to make is I had to put a Accord throttle body on it. The Accord throttle body is drive-by cable. The TSX one is drive-by-wire. This car is not really equipped to do drive-by-wire. Along with that, I took the throttle cable and the throttle cable bracket from an Element. Those will be going on here. I've not tried that before. Curious to see if it works. The AC pump, and it's filthy, and I think I need to clean it, is from an RSX Type S. Those are compatible with the EP3 pulleys because I think they're the same part. Another thing I had to change was this thermostat housing. If you look right here, if this was attached, you would notice that the hose would come up. Well, we're using an EP3 radiator in this car, and that radiator outlet's right down here. So this going up doesn't really work. So I switched it for the CRV one, which is the same as EP3, same as RSX. Another option, rather than switching the whole housing, would have been just to get the RDX thermostat outer part, this part of the housing with the thermostat on it. That actually points down as well and bolts straight up to this thermostat housing. One of the things that's interesting about this is this comes out a slightly different angle. So you wind up actually have to bend the pipe in order to get this one to work well, seal up, and not piss water all over the place. The other thing I did is I put an idler pulley on this. I have power steering in this car, but I actually have electronic power steering out of an EP3. More on that later. I'm not going to go into it right now. But that allows me to run the EP3 idler pulley and kind of simplify some of the hookups on this car. Other than that, it's pretty much a stock TSX engine. Later on, I might do a 40-degree VTC, maybe a Ford throttle body, maybe some Type R cams, but the way it sits, that's how it's going in the car. Now we're going to do the mounts. Now, as I mentioned before, this mount is quite a bit different than the one that's used for the RSX transmission. The only thing that's really uncommon is the height of this and where this barrel of the mount is located, and this front bolt hole. Other than that, it's kind of different. Now, this is a TSX transmission. It also works with the Accord transmission from the, first gen TSX transmission, the magnesium one. It also works with the Accord transmission from the 2003 to 2007 Accord. So if you're looking to do it in like a budget that Accord transmission is cheap. I've seen them for, you know, 250 bucks all around, and even less than that. Although I think, unfortunately, the price is starting to go up on them because we released mounts for them. So now
There's demand.
they're a little more demand. Exactly. So this is a bracket that Hasport makes that basically mimics the one on the back of the RSX Type S, but it attaches to the blocks that the RSX Type S bracket does not. So it grabs this block hole right here, this hole that goes through the block into the transmission, and then these two bolt holes right here. The only thing that might be a problem is this bolt hole isn't actually present on all engines, so sometimes you might have to actually drill and tap that out for a bolt. But having the 4 bolts on there makes it pretty strong. I actually ran this for a couple of years only with these 2 bolts, but I don't suggest that. That usually breaks out this piece right here of the metal. So the DC5 mount goes in just as it would if you had an RSX in here. Mount slides in easily. It's a flange nut, it's a normal Honda. Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Crap. In the last episode we left off, we just installed our motor, trying out both sets of mounts so you could see how the K20A2 and the K24 fit inside this car. That is the K24 with an Accord or TSX transmission. Now what I need to do is connect everything. So let's get started. I generally like to start off underneath the car, connect everything up there. Once I get that done, drop it down and start connecting everything from the top. Let's take a look at what we need to do. So the parts I need to install from underneath the car are the header, its heat shield, also the catalytic converter, along with the secondary O2 sensor and the air fuel ratio sensor. I'm going to go ahead and use a transmission brace. If I was using an RSX motor, this transmission brace is actually built into the aluminum oil pan, but I've got a steel oil pan, so I'm going to put this brace on. And then of course the axles. I'll be honest, it would have been a lot easier to put the header on had I done this before. I put the engine in. There's plenty of room without the subframe to lower this in. Unfortunately, I chose not to do that. Anyway, first goes on the metallic head gasket. Next, the header. It's held in by 3 bolts and 2 nuts. As I mentioned before, I'm using RSX Type S exhaust on this car. It's kind of interesting. Take a look up here. Let's see if we can see this. Notice right here, it's got actually like a divided exhaust. So you have the 4 tubes come down into 2 half tubes. And then if we go over here and look at the catalytic converter. Again, it's divided in two all the way down. So this is a 4-2-1 exhaust. And I'm sure they obviously did that for performance. They're trying to extract 200 horsepower of this. So it's kind of a cool design. If you're using the EP3 exhaust, that exhaust is a little bit different. It doesn't have the division coming into the pipe going into the catalytic converter. It's actually just a single pipe, so it's a little bit, I guess, lower performance. What's also interesting is if you have EP3 header and catalytic converter, it actually bolts up to the stock ES EM2 exhaust. It bolts right up to it like it was meant to be. But if you have the RSX Type 1, that's actually a little bit longer, so you wind up having to have exhaust that's more similar to the RSX. As a matter of fact, if you have a coupe, I believe you might be able to bolt the RSX exhaust directly on. This car originally had RSX exhaust, and all I had to do was I had to lengthen, I believe, the pipe right before it went over top of the axle in order for it to fit properly. Next part is the catalytic converter. If you guys are enjoying the VTEC Academy videos, please consider subscribing. Also hit the like button. That brings us to more viewers so that we can expand our channel, and that'll help us out with bringing you more content. Anyway, don't forget, head on over to the VTECacademy.com store and you can check out shirts just like this one. That also helps support us. When we first built this car, we did an RSX race car. When we first built this car, along with the RSX Type S subframe, lower control arms, we also went ahead and swapped in the 5-lug so we could use the much larger outer joint, a lot stronger. So the axles are RSX Type S. Sometimes the axle doesn't want to seat all the way. In that case, I actually like to use the knuckle as a hammer, but it's seated.
Stop! Hammer time! Hammer time!
For the moment, I'm just going to run down the nut, kind of tighten it up. Once I get this thing on the ground and have some help, I'll have somebody put the foot on the brake so I can torque it properly. And don't forget to stake the nut. Staking the nut means putting a dent in the edge so that it coincides with the dent in the outer end of the joint so it doesn't back off. This nut, tightened fully, actually helps hold the bearing together. If this nut were to come off, your bearing could separate along with your wheel. That kind of wraps up everything from the bottom. So now I'm going to drop the car down and go ahead and start attaching everything on top. Obviously the radiator is missing, but before we do that, there's a bunch of stuff that we can get to easily before we put the radiator in. The K24 is super tight against the radiator, so a couple things. Going to want to attach the slave cylinder, clutch slave cylinder, the AC lines, and on top of that, we're going to want to put the radiator in with just a condenser fan on, and then slide the radiator fan in afterwards. It's a good idea to disconnect the wiring harness on the front side of the throttle body. That way you can kind of push it down out of the way. It doesn't interfere with the radiator fan as you're sliding it in, but be careful you don't snag it and pull it up, because you might dislodge the starter wire, and that's a pain in the butt to put back on once the radiator's in. So be careful and check after the radiator's in to make sure that it's still connected. Real disappointing to get in your car and nothing happens when you turn the key on. As I mentioned earlier, we're using EP3 hoses for our air conditioning. One of the things we had to do in order to get this to work is change where the condenser mounted. Looking down here, you can see that hole to the right side. That is where the condenser used to mount, and the one we welded in further to the left. The condenser sits farther over to the driver's side because that's where the receiver dryer is on this particular swap. So we had to make a couple changes to the mounting points in order to get it where we needed it. There may be a condenser that bolts right in that doesn't have this problem. If somebody knows what it is, put it down in the comment section below and I'll make sure everybody else knows. We had to build this little extension in order to be able to reach our plug. Remember, our plug used to come over on this side over here of the engine initially, so we made that little extension that's going to come across there. Another thing we had to do is we had to swap the radiator condenser fan plugs. We had to lengthen them so that we made sure that the condenser fan was being operated by the condenser fan plug, which would be this one, and the radiator fan was being operated by the radiator fan plug. All right, just one more bolt to anchor our AC line to the subframe. Where's that hole? There it is. This is our K-Series slave cylinder. It's basically the one off the RSX. It'll work on the Accord just as well. Also, the hard line is from an RSX as well. Now this car was originally an automatic, so I took a pedal assembly from a Civic, placed it in, and I made one custom line that went from the slave cylinder down to the frame rail and then hooked up to the soft line for the RSX. The RSX has a hard line out of the slave cylinder. It comes across the transmission. Then there's a bracket at the back side of the transmission and a soft line that goes to the frame rail. So I just made a short little line that connected from the clutch master to the slave. Okay, the radiator we're using is out of a 2002 to 2005 Civic Si, and the reason we use it is because we know those Si hoses would work. That's providing we had an RSX engine in here, which we don't. But the hoses aren't the big deal. But more importantly, there's a piece of plastic trim that goes across the top of the bumper, and there's an opening for the radiator cap that's over on this side. And this lines up perfectly with that. You can actually put the RSX radiator in there. It'll fit fine, but when you put that piece of plastic trim on, the upper outlet is, or sorry, the upper radiator cap is not in the same spot. With the EP3 it is. I'm sure that has to do with the fact that this engine comes in a Civic in Southeast Asia. may have noticed my core support is trimmed a little bit here. I'm not sure that's strictly necessary. I think I might have done it originally for a V6 swap I was working on when I was prototyping, but it does actually allow me a little more clearance here. This wiring harness tucks up underneath the core support. We're actually going to zip tie it in place. He's going behind it. There we go. One of the things I did that I thought was kind of interesting is I actually kind of rebent the prop rod. The prop rod typically, looks like I need new plastic over there. The prop rod wasn't quite shaped like this, so I actually reformed it in order for it to work with this. I wonder though if you could get one from an EP3. I'm not really sure if it plugs in the same place. This one I believe plugs in here and here, depending on how high you want to place it. So it's very possible that there's another prop rod that works well, possibly the one from the EP3. I probably should try it out. Well, let me check my starter wire. It's good. Alright, the shifter cables are, like I said before, they're from the first generation TSX or from the 03 to 07 Accord. They're a little bit different, but this is what's required in order to make the shift properly. They go on just like any of them do. You feed them through the bracket, although they're retained by a couple 10mm bolts, and you put them on the shift mechanism on the transmission. There we go. Next is the heater hoses. If I recall correctly, I used basically a bulk line for this one piece of hose that comes off of the heater valve. For the other one, I think I used one from an EP3, but it's actually just a little bit short. There may be another one that's more effective. I'll have to look and see if maybe the RSX one has a little bit more length and might work slightly better. Next is the purge valve, the brake booster, and the fuel line. They all pass through right here. Here's the stock fuel line. You can see it dead ends right here. This right here is our brake booster line. You can see it kind of pokes up in the air like that. And here is our purge line, comes here and attaches to our purge valve right here. The way the places you're going to attach to, this is our brake booster, so it needs to attach to this. Our purge line is right here. It used to point a different direction. I actually gently massaged the line to get it to bend in the direction I wanted to. Same thing with the fuel line. The fuel line used to not point this direction. I did that, and then using some Dorman products, I manufactured my own fuel line, which will connect straight to the fuel rail. Well, first thing I need to do is get this old set of pipework off so I can show you what I did to modify it. notice how this line goes up in the air? That doesn't do me any good at all. Here's one I modified. If you look at it, it's pretty much straight. The way I did it was I took a Phillips head screwdriver that was about the same diameter, and I shoved it down in there, and I slowly bent it back straight, putting the Phillips head screwdriver in there a little further each time until I had a straight line. Again, this is a brake booster, so the fact that it's not perfectly smooth doesn't really matter. It works absolutely fine. Put it on. Let's connect all these while I'm here. What was I thinking? What I may have done is actually left the Dorman clip on another fuel rail. I think this is the Honda factory clip, which will work for a Honda factory fitting, but not the Dorman fitting. I'm gonna have to go take a look for it. But we can get the rest of the stuff hooked up. Okay, this actually winds up being a pretty good place for a pause. So let me show you what we've got so far. The fuel line needs a different clip. It reaches no problem up here to our fuel setting, but this clip right here is not the one for the Dorman, it's actually the one for the Honda. I need to get the correct one for the job. Next, if we look back here, the hose we have, which came off in a cord, that's going to be connecting to our purge line, actually is a little bit large. So I'm going to buy some shrink tubing, some double wall shrink tubing with adhesive. We're going to put that on there so that it seals up nicely. And it's also beer 30. So I'm going to take a little break and go hit Amazon, order a few things, and when it gets in, we'll resume. Okay, everybody, settle down, find your seats. Okay, welcome back to VTEC Academy. You're about to get schooled. We're still working on Project Black and Blue, the Bruiser. I ordered a few things. They came in on Amazon. One of them was this shrink tubing. This is actually marine shrink tubing. It's double wall thick. It has an adhesive glue inside of it. This is what I wanted to use to size up the evap connector. Remember last time we tried to take the hose from the Accord for the evap, and it was a much larger diameter. So I'm going to use this to build it up. Because it has adhesive on here, it does a much better job of sealing, particularly if things get hot. I think it works pretty good. In fact, I used this recently to upsize an 1.1/8" radiator inlet to 1.25", and that worked pretty good too. Much larger piece of tubing, but same type of thing. One of the other things I ordered was a new V-band clamp. I don't know if you recall, I may or may not have left it in the video. I actually damaged the one that was on the car. I over tightened it and broke it off. Just snapped that thing right off. Kind of surprised me. But I wonder what brand it was. Anyway, I ordered a new one. We're gonna put it on. All right. Now we'll cut a chunk of the heat shrink off and connect up our purge system. You can see it sized it up rather nicely. We'll see if this all fits together now. Okay. Fuel line on. Evaporative emissions line on. What's next? Okay, now that I've got the last couple of things from the last episode wrapped up, I have a list here of things I need to do in order to get this done. I'm going to start off by torquing the exhaust manifold and also installing the heat shield. There's actually quite a bit of room behind the engine, but the heat shield is still necessary to kind of control underhood temperatures. I'm also going to install the radiator hoses, do the grounds, put the wiring harness through the firewall. Then I'm going to put the intake air tube on, including the intake air sensor. Then we need to worry about the alternator recharge cable and the starter cable, and then basically go on to the battery. In this car, the battery's mounted in the rear because of the fact there's really no room for it up front. I mean, initially, with this particular car, there's a battery tray that sits over here where this bracket is, but because the stock bracket was over there and the battery tray used to be on the other side, not really room for that. I suppose I could build kind of a custom battery mount, which I probably should do. In fact, I think I will. I would like to move the battery back up front, but right now my cold air intake is going to take up that room, so yeah, I'll have to think about this a little bit further. But we'll install the battery, I think, in the trunk for the moment. Gosh, that's just like, now I'm really puzzling over this. I like the idea of a battery up front, but it is going to interfere with where I'm able to place the cold air intake. At one point I had the battery mounted all the way down the subframe, which was kind of a cool idea, but it was kind of hard to maintain maintenance. Yeah, I'm gonna have to think about that further. Anyway, need to get all the stuff done so I can get it fired up. See, if I recall correctly, this upper radiator hose I got off of a 92 Del-Sol VTEC. Might have had to shorten it a little bit. Could have been off a 92 GSR too. But basically that's the shape of it. So those hoses happen to be this 1.25 inch size that we need for this thing. And they fit really nicely. That's all the way on. go. The bottom hose, pretty sure it's off an EP3. Well, we're going to put this in from the bottom. I don't recall there being a top or a bottom way to install this. I think it's pretty much the same either way. You know, I think I'll reposition the clamps. So these are actually spring clamps. Yeah, spring them. You ever had these snap loose on your finger? Not fun. Got me. By the way, if you hadn't already plugged in your radiator fan switch down here, now would be a good time. Next are the grounds. Hasport gives out these tricky little threaded flange washers. Normally you would put one right here on a lot of the K-swap kits and use your ground to that. This particular car though, the ground sits back here on the on the shock tower, so I find it's a little bit easier just to go ahead and attach it to the head instead. When I had this installed last time, I had the ground actually attached to the transmission right here by pulling up this one bolt for the shift mechanism. But I think I'm actually going to use a ground tab this time. The ground tab sits right here underneath this bolt, and then you just attach your ground to that. I suggest supporting the engine from underneath when you're doing this. Otherwise the mount's liable to gap. Might not be so easy to get the bolt back in. Take the washer off. Put the flange washer on. Screw it back down. Like I said, support it from underneath. Once you're done installing the grounds, I suggest going back through the entire car, tightening all the mounts and brackets to make sure they're tight. I actually had to loosen this one up because it wanted to misalign when I took the bolt out to put it in the ground tab. Should have put it in when I put the mount in. So next is the harness. We're going to feed it back underneath these lines and across the top of the firewall. We want to keep it away from the header so it doesn't melt. This plastic grommet will plug straight into the stock hole. This rubber grommet is what seals out the weather. So what you want to do is you want to put it on first. And the way you do that is, you can see right here, there's a rubber key that coincides with this part on the plastic. So you need to feed that through. And then just get the rubber grommet on all the way around. There we go. By the way, a lot easier to pull it off than it is put it on. Basically, to get it off, you just tug on these ears. Comes right off. That's if you're plucking it out of a car at the salvage yard. The rubber is on, it's protected. All right, let's plug it in. All right, pulled it through from the inside. Now just need to snap it in place. All right, some zip ties and we're good to go. The last two connections I need to make are these. I don't know if you recall when we were doing our wiring harness a while ago. This is actually our starter wire, and this is the alternator recharging connection. This comes from the alternator, goes to the starter. This simply attaches to the fuse box here. So take the lid off this, which is a real pain in the butt with the AC hose in. Normally with this AC hose, this is over on that side of the car, and the ABS is over here. But anyway, connects right there. By the way, this other wire right here, this is what connects to the battery. This actually comes down and connects to a block down here that I'm going to connect our starter wire to as well. I'll show it to you in just a minute. Okay, down here is a Memphis car audio fuse block. This metal plate actually used to be 2 fuses. And of course you want to put fuses on your battery connections. But I'll tell you what's funny. Having the fuses up here kind of destroys the purpose of the fuse. I've got a large gauge battery cable that travels from here all the way to the trunk, and that's not the place to put the fuse. The place to put the fuse is back in the trunk. So some time ago, I went ahead and just made this a straight connection with no fuse block anymore. So what's going to happen is my starter wire is going to come down here and plug into the other side of the fuse block, get tightened down, and then this cable goes back through the firewall all the way to the back of the car. Let me tighten this down and then we'll go back there. Longer extension would have been smart. We're going to need to secure this out of the way so it doesn't get dragged into the belt and worn through. And there's an insulator that goes on top of this. I need to locate it somewhere in my stuff. So here's my current battery setup. Initially I had an Optima battery back here, which didn't require that the battery be mounted in a sealed box. But in spite of that, actually it would have been in violation of certain rules. Most race groups, drag racing included, require you to have a remote switch to turn off the car just in case something happens. This battery being mounted in the back, that would have fallen into that rule group and would have been required to have that. So I'm not positive I'm going to leave the battery back here, particularly if we wind up going to track and stuff. But I think initially I'm going to do it just to get the car back on the road again. I really should put it in a box though. So what I bought is this Noco box at Walmart, and it actually fits nicely in this base right here. So it should be easy to attach down and get it in there. I may wind up running the belt underneath this metal plate and then going over top the box in order to secure the battery. Another option, which I'm considering, is actually building a sealed top for this so that maybe I might wind up leaving it back here or reusing this box with another car. The box top that comes with it is hardly sealed. This is actually kind of a marine battery setup, not a race car battery setup. So this doesn't really follow the rules strictly because of these large gaps and vents, which kind of destroys the purpose of having a sealed box. Anyway, I think that I'm probably, like I said, might just make a sealed top for it. Then if I ever decide I want to make it legal for racing, I'll go ahead and rig up a power switch back here somewhere. And I think that'll work pretty good. I also mentioned while I was up there, I have this big, huge honking cable that goes all the way to the front. And it was fused up front, and that's just dumb. If it happened to short out somewhere between here and the front, the battery would basically arc and probably catch the car on fire. So I decided I'm going to add a fuse back here. Now, what I decided to do was use this thing. You can buy fuses, a lot of stereo system stuff. I actually found this on a lot of the newer BMWs. This is for the remote mounted battery that's like on BMWs and Porsches and stuff like that. It's got a 250 amp fuse here, and basically you bring the battery cable in, or in this case we're going to probably bring it in this way, and then a cable out to go to the front of the car. And what I thought I would do is actually mount it on the back side of the box here. That way I don't have to drill any holes in the car. It'll be easy to service, other than the fact that it'll be kind of on the back side of this. But I can just lift the battery box out and just change the fuse if I need to. But I think that'll actually be a really nice compromise. So these things shoot, I think I paid like $8 for it, maybe $10 for it at the salvage yard. Kind of a really cool deal. It looks like it's set up for a lot more, you know, fuses in here generally, but I'm basically just going to use it with the one single fuse right here. So again, one lead comes in here, one lead comes in here, and your 250 amp fuse protects your car from bursting into flames if something were to happen. I'll probably just drill a couple of new holes and screw it down. It actually clipped into a metal bracket on the BMW, but if I recall correctly, that bracket was welded into the car, so and I'm not going to bother making one. I'll just use a few screws. Anyway, I need to get going on that now. In order to finish my battery box, I'm going to have to order a few parts, but let's move on. Next thing I need to do is install my intake. I made this a while ago. Basically, went to Vibrant Performance and ordered two 90-degree pieces of tubing, 3 inches, and also this coupler that went from, I think it's 275, 250, I don't know. I'll put part numbers in the show notes. And it was a 45-degree coupler, and that sits like this. And by welding on these two extra pieces of tube, we can hook up to our air assist valve and also to the vent for the crankcase. And then the air filter can sit right here down tucked in front of the transmission. Now, as I said earlier, I actually ordered 2 pieces of 90. The other one being right here. And the reason I did that is because I wanted to be able to actually take the second 90, attach it with a silicone coupler, whoops, so that it now put my air filter down here behind the front fender to make it a cold air intake. Now, for those of you who don't know me, I often call cold air intakes drinking straws. When you go out in the rain, the tendency is to go through a puddle, suck up a bunch of water, hydrolock your engine. That's why AEM went to great lengths to make a valve that whenever there was water, extra pressure from water, it would actually draw through a valve that sat midway in your air intake tube. I thought having a 2-piece construction was going to be a good idea because you could have it on there when you needed the cold air, but for general driving, I thought I would just put the filter in here. I don't need all the horsepower all the time, but if I'm going to the track and I want that little extra boost, plus when I go to tune it, I would like it drawing from colder air. So I'm going to get a silicone coupler to bring these two together, set up the air filter so it's down there in that area down there, and that means I'm going to need to put some sort of a shield in there for the tire. My plastic fender liners are gone. They tend to get ripped out during racing. They get beat up, tear, and then snag on something. So what I'm going to do is build like an aluminum plate down there that will actually prevent the tire from throwing rocks at my filter or from splashing water at it directly if I get caught out when I shouldn't be. But I thought it was a cool little design, and that's how it works. Don't forget your intake air temp sensor. Looks like I'm going to need a couple of tubes in order to make my connections to the intake. No big deal. I think I have them already down at work on the old engine. But next I need to get oil and distilled water. All right, we have filled up the engine with Mobil 1 synthetic 5W30, which is what the engine calls for. By the way, there are some products out there for high mileage motors. This motor is over 175,000 miles, so And even at that mileage, it's really not that high mile. In fact, Honda motors aren't really high mile until you see them start to smoke, and then usually they need to be rerun, not some sort of high mileage motor oil or something like that. But anyway, next thing is to fill the system, the coolant system. I'm going to suggest you go out and buy one of these. This is called a spill-proof funnel, and there's like a little cap here that screws on with an opening. You just pop this right down in there. You can fill it up with a lot of extra water, and that makes it a lot easier to bleed the system. Sometimes I'll actually even disconnect one of the hoses here back. There's this vent for the valve cover, and there's a hose that goes up and kind of warms that air coming out. So I'll disconnect that hose and then fill up the system, and as water starts to come out of that, I'll reconnect the hose. That'll actually help get the air bubbles out as well. But once you have it filled up all the way, you can fire up the car, let it idle. You can actually see when the thermostat opens up, because you'll see the water start to circulate in here. You can see it start moving. And when it does that, I'll usually rev the engine up to maybe 2,000 RPM, not too high. You go too high, it'll actually push water out of the not so spill-proof funnel. But that'll help kind of push air through the system and get it out of there. You can let it idle for, gosh, probably let the thermostat open 3 times at least. Once you do that, you can shut the engine off, and as everything cools down, it'll suck some of this water back down in with it. Then there's a plug like this that you can plug it off with, bring it out, take it off, and put a regular radiator cap on, and that usually takes care of it first time. Anyway, guys, you don't need to see me fill this thing up with water. We're here for the first ever Falcon Tire Super Saloon Shootout. For those of you who don't know what a saloon is, it's not a place you go get a drink.
Yeah, it's where you get drunk.
Yeah. No.
It's where you get in a fight and there's a hookers upstairs.
You tie your horse out up front.
Yeah.
Looks like somebody's been down here with the ugly stick.
I brought Project Black and Blue, my Civic that's been my daily driver for quite some time. Originally picked it up back in 2002 as a theft recovery, and it had the first K-Series swap in one of these cars using the Hasport mount kit, and it's been developed over the years for different events. I think last time it was actually racing might have been, well, when it caught on fire, which was because it was turbocharged and too much heat built up under the hood and kind of ignited things. But this also was in the Super 4 shootout for Car and Driver magazine back in, like, I don't know, 2007-ish, and it was second place in the front wheel drive class. It has a TSX motor with TSX transmission. We've upgraded to a fast brakes kit, but it's using Boxster calipers, which is kind of cool. Rear disc conversion as well, that's AEM, slightly bigger rear discs. It's got, of course, the Falcon tires on it, FN01 RC wheels, electronic power steering. We took the EPS from the 02 Civic Si, transplanted that in this so that we could have electronic power steering, because there wasn't really room for the power steering pump without cutting the hood. So it's got that. Has MagnaFlow. It has a custom exhaust made with MagnaFlow parts, really nice, 3-inch. Works really well with the turbo. Has a nice throaty sound to it, so it's really, really nice. Sounds a lot more aggressive that way. It has Progress sway bar on it, although it's disconnected right now because the suspension is really stiff. And it has Progress coilovers front and rear on it as well. That's the setup we originally had. It's got 06 Civic Si Coupe front seats. The interior has been converted kinda to a darker black color instead of the gray. It's actually been hit by a forklift and hit by a truck, and so it's a little bit rough.
I think it's going to do really well. It's got the big ass brakes. It's got light wheels, good tires, and it's lighter than both of our my Civic and Carter's Accords.
I'm just worried about the power to weight ratio he's gonna have over me. That's the big thing. And he's got just as much brakes, if not more, than I have. The radio doesn't work. Oh no, it works when the headlights are off. When you turn the headlights on, the radio goes up. But only one speaker works anyways. It most of the clear coat's missing along with some of the paint. And the interior is the wrong color and missing some panels.
Because it's my car, I don't really have time to work on it like I should. So it's got a check engine light for NOx sensor. It's got a problem with that. It's got a check engine light for the evap system in it. I need to figure out what's up with that. The wiring is horrendous. This car was originally an automatic car. When I first did it way back in 2002, I did it inside the car and just kind of hacked stuff together, including the EPS. It's got a check engine light for the EPS too, or a EPS light. So it's got a problem here and there. Other than that, I really don't have any complaints about the car. The car fires up every day, drives like a Honda, everything's good. It's all fine. The only other drawback was yesterday when we were cleaning this, getting ready to come out for this event. I thought I smelled a little bit of clutch, and it looks like the clutch is going out on it. So that's going to make it a really lame daily driver. So, but that didn't happen until yesterday. So hopefully it should be fine.
You have a little issue?
Well, I thought I did. It was an old issue.
Uh-oh.
So as they're going around the corner, I hear thumping in the back. And before, I'd always told people, just sway bar. So I went out there, and it was actually pretty loud. And I'm like, oh my God, something's seriously wrong. So I pull in. Turns out, I have one of the end links off the sway bar, and it's clumping against metal. So, anyway, that's all.
I was worried that it was something
Terminal?
bad. Yeah.
No, it's good.
Don't shoot the video beforehand.
Yeah. No, it's good. And the clutch seemed to be okay. So we'll take it out for some hot laps on the next time out. So Brandon took the cars around, and I'm going to announce the lap times, and then you can tell us what you thought of the cars. So in last place was my Civic, which I did not expect at all.
The TSX.
He did a 107.406. I'm bummed, but it was close.
I was fighting it.
Yeah. Second place was the Accord
Oh yeah?
at a 106, 128.
Right. Landed just where I thought I would.
And in first place, surprise, surprise, Pacific SI. Probably because it's mostly stock.
Holy, I did not expect it to be The quickest. No.
That's amazing.
We didn't hear the time.
Yeah, we didn't hear the time.
Yeah, Civic is
103.8 seconds faster. It wasn't even close.
Vanmobile for the win.
For the win.
So black and blue. We did have trouble with it throughout the day, so I was doing my best to drive the car. There was the noise that we still don't really know what it is.
Yeah.
I was just kind of, it's now an audible thing like the exhaust. I just kept going with it. Although it didn't want to turn left, but it loved to turn right.
Yeah.
Which makes me wonder what that noise actually is, because the others, like I felt it kind of like go like dip down and like kind of want to dig in for right turns. And when you went to turn left, it was kind of
Skipping?
stiff. No, it was just stiff going left.
So we actually raised it a little bit on the left. Maybe we should have raised it a little on the right. Maybe we were bottoming out.
Could be.
Oh, interesting.
The actual power of black and blue was kind of hindering, just because in the other two cars I was able to get on the gas and stay floored, and just I'm on it, we're pulling, good. Where black and blue, I'd get on it, lose traction on one side. It might have been, I don't know, me or something going on with it, but I would just lose traction coming in the corner, so I had to sit there and meter it. Although the brakes, being the only one without ABS, I loved them. That was my favorite. They were the most consistent out of the day. Every time I hit them, I knew exactly where the brakes were going to be. I knew how I was going to feel. Blue was definitely fun, but I wasn't able to get very fast with it.
Okay, guys, we're here to hand out the silver spark plug, actually the platinum spark plug. This particular competition is based off of our lap times at Musselman, running the Falcon tires, because this is the Falcon Tire Super Saloon Shootout. In no particular order. Brian, that's me. 108.918 in the black and blue Civic.
That's pretty close to what Brandon ran, right?
Yeah, really close. The second time is Carter.
This feels like a particular order.
At, oh yeah, it was accidental though.
Okay.
Anyway, so a 112.525.
Not my best show.
The car.
The car went faster than I did with Brandon driving.
Okay,
So,
all right.
So driver mod.
Driver mod.
yeah, loose nut connecting the steering wheel to the seat.
Last but not worst.
Okay.
And not last. All right. Aaron with a 108.113.
Oh,
Fastest time.
faster than
Faster
the black and blue
than
car.
the black and blue car.
Dang.
That's good.
Oh, crap.
Modified cars. Mostly stock cars.
Stock.
Thanks for watching. Like, subscribe, share, buy a t-shirt.
And let's drink some champagne.
Oh man.
Let's clean it
I'm
and
not
then drink some
drinking out of
champagne.
this
10
dirty
a.m. in the
thing.
morning, I'm down.
Okay. Mimosas.
It's 10 o'clock somewhere.